Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our Prism 1.9 in a nutshell webinar. I'm Taylor Hempel, and I'm a marketing specialist here at ESC Spectrum. Today, we have Stephen Gauthier, our QA Engineer 3, and Jarek Snyder, QA Automation Engineer 2 here at ESC Spectrum. During this webinar, Jarek and Stephen will discuss the ins and outs of the latest version of our Prism Data Acquisition System 1.9. Just a reminder to hold any questions you have until the end and type them in the question panel on the right-hand side of your screen. After the presentation is over, I will read out the questions and they will answer them to the best of their ability. With that being said, let's begin.
Hey, thank you for the introduction. I'm Jarek. I'm going to be talking about what's new in Prism 1.9. But first, we're going to talk about platform support. Because all of our products, this is starting from Prism 1.8, are now, all the requirements for those products are consistent. So things like .NET Framework, Windows, and versions of SQL Server. .NET Framework 4.8 is required for all of these. As for server support, both Windows and SQL was shown here. Windows Server 2016 will not be supported end of June. SQL Server 2017 will stop being supported in January of 2025. So if you're looking for upgrades, aim to get everything upgraded to SQL Server and Windows Server 2019 or 2022. On the client side of things, Windows 10 and Windows 11, both of those will be supported for the foreseeable future. All right, in the ECMPS module, we now have the ability to generate online, offline, and calibration demonstrations. This is something Part 75 customers need to do to document calibration drift, and this can now be done without visiting the database. We're going to go ahead and do a quick walkthrough of kind of what that process will look like. So the first page has plenty of options to kind of filter the calibrations you'll be looking at. Start date, end date, reporting group, and instrument. And these reports will be able to be exported to either XML or, when required, be exported to JSON as well. Yeah, these are just filters for our next page. And this is where you would come and select all of the calibrations you need for an online offline cal. We've got a couple of sections here. There's a zero and span at the top. Each of those have event time, expected, measure, different status. You'll notice it reports here online and offline, depending on which it is. You can select the ones you need. You'll notice down here at the bottom, there are warnings and errors that show up when incorrect selections have been made. And those are validated behind the scenes, and if it is an invalid selection, the finish button will be disabled. But it still allows the freedom to pick the ones that are acceptable. Next, in the administrative area, we can now configure reporting systems. And again, this is a thing that could be done before, but through the database, it can now be done in the Prism interface, preventing trips to the database. Adding and editing are both the same for reporting systems. They just need a name and reporting groups. They don't have to have any reporting groups. You can have more than one if needed. And all those are available for both additions and editing. If a reporting group is grayed out in either of these places, it's because it's been used by another reporting system. So you can only have one reporting system per group, reporting group. Next, we'll be talking about the data editor, being able to mark calculated tag data as missing. This provides the ability to flag calculated data as missing. So if you have hourly data that relies on calculated tag data, the tag data can now be correctly flagged as missing. So what that'll look like is in the flag data missing section, it's the same as it was before, except now any of your calculated items will show up with a little calculation tag, so you know that it is a calculation tag. Data averaging, this is another administrative option. And this is part of the database updater service. When you're in here adjusting these settings, if you enable this, I believe it's disabled by default, you will need to restart the service. But what this does is during periods of non-measurement where there are 0 valid samples, so you're still reading data, but none of the samples are valid, those will now still be calculated through to everything except for qualified data. So it still won't be used for qualified data, but everywhere below qualified data, it'll show up just as a reference. Whereas previously, or with this feature turned off, it will be forced to 0, which was the behavior before. Yeah, this is a lot of what I was talking about. So yeah, number of samples, these are valid samples. You lose valid samples depending on out of service, offline, or missing data. And those would previously have been forced to 0. But now it'll show a value in both the database and in Prism. And again, that is non-qualified data. Next, data editor can now run a recalc to update the values of previously used calibration gas bottles. This is useful if you entered some values of gases incorrectly to begin with. This was another thing that was possible by going through the database, but is now integrated into Prism. There's a new option when you are creating a new recalc task now at the very bottom, edit bottle concentrations. This is roughly what that'll look like. It allows you to pick any of the bottles that have been entered. I believe, yeah, any of the bottles that have been entered. The next page lets you modify these values for all the concentrations of each type. It should be noted that you cannot change the types of gas that are in here, just their values. And then a confirmation page letting you know the date range that'll be affected. Well, all the things that this bottle was used for that will need updated. That also reports your new values. Next, we have the running calibration UI. So this is for when a calibration is currently running. The overloaded tag is now shown in place of the the regular tag if one is configured. It is worth noting that this was a visual problem as far as pass-fail. Everything in the database and as compliance goes, everything was correct beforehand. This was just a visual change. So yeah, if you have an overloaded tag configured, you can see here, there is an overloaded tag configured. This is looking at those tags. So this is the actual value, and this is the overloaded value. We'll see a difference now. Note that these values are different. We have 55 for the regular value and 51 for the overloaded. When the calibration running UI is open, you now see the corrected overloaded tag. This is showing the 51 as it should, and this is where the update was made. This would previously show the incorrect colors at certain times, as it was basing it off of the original tag as opposed to the correct overloaded tag. In the ECM, I'm actually going to hand it over to Steve now to finish talking about all these features.
All right, thanks, Derek. We've got a new ECMPS test. This is cycle time. Basically, the test verifies the time it takes a system to cycle from a stable low concentration to a stable high and then back again. We've got a form here for the input of the parameters for the test. And we've also included for Mercury, there is the injection protocol code. The operator just needs to select which of the protocols that they're using. That data is not available in the monitoring plan. And then you can edit the tests or create new ones, and it's all done in the Part 75 tab, the ECMPS module. That is exportable to XML and JSON. The next item should be offline blowback. Yeah, it's an automatic offline blowback. Previously, this was set with a calculation, and it's to turn on blowback when the unit is offline, but it's not in calibration. And we've got the same thing now with a switch. So in our probe section, you can set the perform offline blowbacks, and it's just a yes, no now. Just no manual calculation needs to be added. So next one we should have is reports administration. This is part of the effort that our dev team has done to move some of these database operations from the database to the user interface in an administration area. Jarek mentioned a number of those, and this is previously any of the operations that required you to manually edit the SQL Server reports table in the database is now available in the administration area now. So if you need to change a URL or just the name of a report, you can still put in a ticket if you need assistance, or if you just want to manually edit it yourself, you can do it in this area now. Yeah, that's administration server and devices. This is basically, it's basically mirroring the SSR reports table. We have the name, the URL, the path, and then this is set up same format as all of our other administration pages. There is a list on the left and then details area on the right. Yeah, and I believe this is the edit mode. of the details for our online 1-minute data. Yeah, again, same fields. We have 8864 Modbus channel support, Q-type channels. Q-type channels are 8864 channels that are designed to talk to Modbus sources. Prism can communicate with these channels, but up until recently, we had no way to configure them. So this provides the ability to create Q-type channels in the 8864 configuration. This is added to support customers who had Modbus devices but didn't want to use the Prism Modbus source as the source type. And also the 8864 compact units, they don't have a physical I/O, so it's just Modbus. This allows Prism to be used with those compact units. I believe the next few slides, we've got a demonstration of editing source, and it's just available in the point configuration. So we're selecting Modbus and then selecting the correct address. Yep, and that's a Q-type channel. What we have here is the Q-type channel settings on the left, and then basically they're the mirror of where what is seen on the administration page. So you can scan rate, scaling factor. This is the same thing. The similar settings between the 8864 and then its Prism equivalent. You got input scan interval. It's Modbus scan rate. Same thing for the scale factor. I believe most significant word, yeah, is the next one. So these are all things that you'd see in the 8864, and then we now have the equivalent setting in the administrations area. Yeah, hold between updates. So everything that you would need to set this up is available now on the point configuration page. Probes, this is another example of moving database operations to the UI. We have a probes administration screen. It's adding, editing, expiring probes. There's a good amount of validation here. For instance, flow and mercury instruments can only be assigned to flow and mercury reporting groups. If you have previously assigned an instrument to a probe and you're creating a new probe, that instrument is not available in the dropdown to be assigned. So you can do all of your administration for your probes from the administration area now. And a similar setup, we have your probes list on the left and then the details for your selected item on the right. And then, yeah, more options available if you're in edit mode. Reasons and actions. This allows the users to manage reasons and actions codes. Those codes appear as drop-down choices under compliance and downtime events. So when you're coding a compliance event or a downtime event, the available choices in the drop-down are populated from these lists, and these lists are they're managed under administration, Simpson site, reasons and actions. You can add new reasons and actions. You can edit current ones. so long as they are not already in use. So if you have a downtime event coded to, a particular reason or action, you can't then edit that because that would be modifying historic data. So you can add a new one and then use that new one going forward, but anything that has already been assigned can't be edited. And in the same format, we have the list on the left and then your selected item details on the right. And then the main drop down is the code types, and each one of those will give you a different list. And those are connected to the drop downs when coding downtime or compliance events. Qualified data report. Previously, when you run the qualified data report, it will show each of the records for the date range of that report. And some of our users really just needed the summary data out of that. Having SQL Server reports run and return several days worth of data when really you just needed the summary. This option makes it a lot faster now. You can choose to have just summary data run, and it will only return that and not each of your qualified records. So in the example here, we've got a 15-minute report, but if this is running over several days, you may not want to return, all of those records. You just want the summary data. So you can choose summary only true, and the report will run and not return each 15-minute record, just the summary data. Our alarm service, we have outdated data alarms, and this is for our semi-qualified, which would be 1 minute, or our qualified, anything greater than 1 minute. We have an alarm interval, which is 2 times the sample rate plus 15 minutes. So for a 15-minute data table, that would be 45 minutes. Beyond 45 minutes, the alarm would sound and basically show you that your qualified data alarm has gone off. Now, we don't have an alarm for the 10-second data because that's the same as the DCS alarm for the source. So, but the semi-qual and the qualified tables now have outdated data alarms. I believe the next screen just shows an example of one of each going off. So it's again 2 times the sample rate plus 15 minutes. So for your hour table, it'd be 2 hours and 15 minutes. If data is outdated beyond that, then the alarms go off. Last slide is this is just a summary of updates, kind of where we're at with the ECMPS 1.0, 2.0. We are still waiting on a revised target date. The EPA is working with contractors. They've made some changes to the 1.0 platform, and then some of the changes to MATS. Some of these are just their report type description is going to be changed, and then the what used to be the MATS PDF submit module is the MATS data submission module, and it just allows the XML and JSON file types. And then I believe we have a list of items that were included in 1.9 for the ECMPS 2.0, things like the cycle time test, daily backstop reporting, a few of our MATS items. And then there is a plan to have a separate ECMPS 2.0 specific webinar, and that's TBD right now as we're waiting on updates from EPA. We have some minor updates here, just little things that didn't require, their own slide. Prism's using a more secure hash. It's replacing MD5. It's SHA-256. We're updating some terminology for Modbus server. We have a search in the administration's page. So if you can't remember where the monitoring plans page is, you can actually just type monitoring into the search and find what you need, things of that nature. We added restrictions for invalid data. So the setting a time span for the invalid data is limited to 3 months. Prism adds a dirt check. You're adding a new opacity instrument. Dirt check's automatically added now when using the standard calibration method. Tags, expired tags now have the deleted moniker in front of them. Also, the row is grayed out, it's bolded, it's italicized. This is just a better visual representation so you can see at a glance which of your tags are expired and which aren't. UI's been updated. It's making the administration screens more consistent with the rest of the program. We've seen that with your data list and then your details section to the right, and then standard view edit modes, add new. Restricted reporting groups has been extended to include tags and sources. And then finally, it's the sources table update. So changing the raw points data we have new methods that update the source tables so that when there is a raw point data change, the source tables are modified along with that. Is there a second page to this? I believe that was all the minor updates.
Yeah, that was it.
All right, if y'all have any questions for Jarek or Steven, please place them in the question panel on the right-hand side of your screen. I'll give everyone a few seconds to place those questions. All right, it looks like we don't have any questions right now. Thank you everyone for joining us. Jarek and Steven, do y'all have any last notes you'd like to add, or are we good to go?
I think I'm good. We covered a lot of ground here.
Yeah, I think we're good.
All right, awesome. Well, thank you everyone for joining us, and y'all have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, everybody.